See, the
Hey,
trick
hey,
is to
hey.
act. Oh,
Oh, I'm
Oh,
cutting you off.
oh,
The trick is
wow.
whoa.
Uh-oh.
What
Uh-oh.
is the trick to what? I want to know. They don't. I don't know if they because you guys know this, right? You've caught on at this point. I can't hear what you're saying during the intro, so
oh, okay. I always thought
yeah,
you could.
they're all sharing the hot
Oh,
details.
oh, we
You'll
know
never
that.
know.
Oh yeah,
You'll never
they're
know.
gossiping about me. I hate that
Yes.
guy. Why
The
am I
trick
here?
is to always sound like you're coming out of a conversation
Yeah.
or like laughing
And
at
that's
the
the
end.
first
That's
time
the-
I.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. All right, welcome everybody to the final split. We're back. It's been a while. We just took a little break after SGDQ. Everybody had a good 4th of July, I hope. And we are back. Today's episode is going to be a little bit of an easy one. We're not going to get too technical here. We're going to just kind of relax, look back at SGDQ, maybe share some stories, and as well as get into maybe some discussion of what we thought of the event. And everybody in chat plays too, so be ready to jump in with your thoughts, and we might relay them on the show. But first of all, I'd like to remind everybody who's on our show. So let's go in a little bit different order this time. I'll start on the right below me here in the red. We have Spike Vegeta. Spike, how's it going?
It's going good.
It's going good.
Just got my top 2 wisdom teeth taken out. So if I seem a little loopy, that's the reason why.
All right.
I think we're doing good.
I just thought you were having a good time. So
Oh, we're having a good time. Trust me.
I think I understand. Okay.
Right.
In the bottom right, our guest this week, an SGDQ favorite and just a funny guy in general, Ribkilla, is joining us today.
Hey, what's up?
Little round of applause, Ribkilla. Welcome to the show.
Yeah,
Woo.
thank you. Thanks for having me.
How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great, actually. I just got home from shopping not too long ago.
Okay.
So picked up some stuff for a wedding next week.
And I see the hat
Gonna
is
be
still
looking dasher. Yeah.
hat's still
Yeah.
intact. So
Oh yeah, she's
Ooh.
still going.
nice, very nice.
Should have washed it, but
And wearing matching shirts right above him in the green, we have Sinister One. How's it
Hey,
going?
you got to represent the SGDQ, you know.
There you go.
That's what we're talking about today, right here. So.
There we go. Very good.
Oh.
If I had known better, yeah.
I didn't think this.
Oh,
was
that's
true.
what we're talking.
I'm pretty
about.
sure mine is in the wash, but you know, if I have to go get it, I'll wear just a soaking wet SGDQ shirt if necessary. All right, but so guys, you know, first thoughts. We've had a little bit of time to recover. I think everybody's had a chance to maybe interact with their own streams and talk a little bit about SGDQ. But let's just kind of, I'm going to go over some of the blanket statistics here, try to cover as much as I can, and then let's get maybe some reaction to that. So this year, $717,000 is the number that I'm seeing. I think a lot of us predicted about that when we had a chance to predict before SGDQ. I think we were saying, you know, it might not hit the million again, but it was bound to come close. Does that number surprise any of you? Do you think, you know, is there something to take away from that?
I think they should, no matter what, be proud of the number. They raised a ton of money. It practically tripled what they did last year. It basically, if you show me the number, I don't watch the marathon at all. I see it as it's AGDQ for something that doesn't hit home as much as cancer. You know, I think that's ultimately what helps and pushes AGDQ over the top to the million.
True,
So,
because as far as like charitable causes go, maybe Doctors Without Borders might be harder to relate to. Is that a fair thing to say? Maybe it's just
I
I'd
would
say
think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Golden, I know you were in the same boat as me. We both did a lot of host station duties.
yeah,
And, you know, you host at AGDQ and half the donations are this sweet story about, oh, my father, you know, my mother or myself. It was pretty much just all, hey, I love what you're doing. I love, you know.
I love
this is cool.
games.
Yeah.
Here's $20.
I love games.
Right?
Yeah, games are cool. Put this towards whatever. Kill the animals, Kappa, you know, whatever. But there's not that, it doesn't hit home as much, I guess.
Sure, and regardless of that, I think the reception was really good. People were jumping in and donating, and I think it was one of those situations where it was kind of like ups and downs as far as donation total too. Because if I remember correctly, the first couple of days it was looking like, hey, we're keeping up with HDQ. You know, this is we weren't expecting this, and then for a while it kind of slowed down again, and it was looking like, oh, I don't know if we're gonna, you know, make it to a number that we want to make it to. And then all of a sudden again, kind of like HEDQ, you know, you hit those last few runs and last few days, and donations were everywhere. So
You know what I think really turned the tide when there was that lull in the action was the 120 star incentive.
Yeah, that really
I
jumped
think that
things up.
really
I was
got
just gonna
things
say
going
that.
again. And I think overall, obviously successful marathon from a donation perspective. SGDQ is catching up with AGDQ. If you look at the percentages of, if you were comparing the two, I mean, I don't think they'll ever be even, but I think it's good to see SGDQ at least coming a lot closer. So it doesn't have that feel like it did, at one time, a long time ago, where it kind of was like the little event and not quite on par.
It's fair to say that they're certainly starting to look, at least from the outside perspective, like equally sized events, but also equally successful events. It's not it's not like the bonus marathon of the year. It's actually marathon number 2 as far as the GDQs go.
Yeah, if you definitely look at it as just as the SGDQ and not comparing the two, it's definitely starting to come up a lot better than what it's been. So, yeah, I mean, it is starting to get on par with AGDQ, but I think it was a great success from what came of it. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And then in addition to just the the dollars raised, the viewer count was up over previous SGDQ. I think it was sitting around 50 to 60 consistently. 50 to 60,000, that is. And I don't think it ever really dipped. Like, I think that's kind of the takeaway. Obviously overnight you're going to see numbers go down as the American audience kind of rests up or whatever. But I don't really feel like it ever took a huge drop throughout the marathon. So I think, that the audience was engaged as well and seemed to be really responsive to it. So numbers-wise, I think the takeaway here is that SGDQ was a huge success, and a big shout-out to RomScout and everybody who organized it, because this is I think it's safe to say, like you start tripling the amount of money that you raise every year, and you get to the point where you say, how many more years can we keep tripling it before it starts to slow down a little bit? But it's impressive that it's still on that roll and that path, at least in my opinion. I don't know, what do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, I hate to be the downer, but I think this is the year that things do slow down a little bit. I don't think we're going to see that doubling or tripling anymore. I can't really imagine 2015 we're going to see 2 million. I'd be shocked. I mean, I hope we do, but I think that would be pretty shocking.
Yeah, I feel the same. I feel like almost it's kind of reached its plateau of sorts. I mean, it could. I'm not saying it's gonna. I mean, I still think it's possible to reach the million mark again. I just don't know if it'll, like you said, double that much. But
yeah, I don't know. I feel like if the organizers decide to, I think we can see, not obviously maybe to the doubling and tripling growth that we've seen, but we can definitely see an increase, especially if you break down. I know we're going to get into more of this later, but if you break into maybe trying to do something else with the show, one statistic that blew me away from this whole marathon, at AGDQ 2014, Save Kill the Animals total was like 60-something thousand. Save Kill raised 109,000 this time.
Yeah, by itself, and that's really impressive if you think. I mean, that's more than 10% of donation money coming in there. So that's something else I want to get to, because we've kind of touched on it a little bit at this point. So Sinister, you kind of brought it up, and then Spike, you kind of mentioned it separately, but you both kind of brought up the point that there were specific incentives that, first of all, the bar was set really high. But then second of all, the donors were pulling through on it. So 120 Star was a perfect example. If I remember correctly, in order for that to happen, they had to raise something like $300,000 more than what they started.
I believe it had to reach the donation total had to be 500,000 by the time it got to it.
Now, let me ask you about just that style of donation incentive. Do you think that's clearer to the viewer and easier for them to understand compared to the traditional donation incentive? Do you feel like that's something that should be used more often, is just compare it to the total amount of money raised so far? Kind of the impromptu incentive. Do you like that idea?
I don't know. I mean, I think part of it is the inherent to the design of it is not only the viewers, but the people at the event are forced to really promote it, whereas some incentives don't get promoted as heavily. But that one, it's like, because we know, hey, we're on a deadline, we need to get this thing met, let's go, let's go, let's go. That thing was getting plugged a hell of a lot. And
Sure.
it's a big incentive too. I mean, it's you know, a huge game, Super Mario 64, so it had both of those things going for it, I guess.
And well, also too, I know a few people were saying to me they were worried. I know, like for Lunar Dragon, we were worried it wasn't going to get met at a certain point. I don't think they plugged the incentives as well as they could have. I mean,
I guess
the majority got met, but I mean, I don't know if this is true or not. But was there any examples of some not getting met at all, or did they all?
Well, my bonus game almost didn't get met. Like, it was literally minutes before the game was scheduled that it got met. So I was worried about it not. I think there may have been a few that didn't get met. I'm not 100% sure on that. Maybe someone else knows.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't heard of any major ones getting missed anyway. Obviously, you know, if it's a bid war or something,
Right.
Maybe the lesser of two evils
no.
got chosen or something like that. But
It just felt like they weren't plugged as much as in the past. I mean, that's just what I took from it. But,
yeah. Before we get there too, I guess just to kind of reword what I'm saying here, I feel like the impromptu incentive gets people going and it gets them donating. You know, it's kind of like you're proposing a live challenge rather than having a prepared one.
Yeah.
And I think there's something about that motivates people to jump in. And, you know, in this case, it was 120 star. And obviously, you know, that's going to get people going no matter what. But I also feel like if that was just an incentive and it was on the donation page, I feel like it would have been shoved under the rug. And just you know, people would have, you know, maybe they donate, maybe we end up with a 70 star and we're in the middle somewhere and that's okay. But I kind of like this idea of just like coming on the microphone and saying, hey, if we hit $500,000 by tonight.
Yeah, I mean, it's worked in the past. I mean, you know, last SGDQ, I think they did that with Ocarina of Time, right? Mm-hmm. That was kind of an impromptu one. So yeah, a lot of the impromptu stuff has worked really well. Drams, any percent Super Mario World from AGDQ 2013, I think, was another impromptu. Like, hey, we need $10,000. You know, then we can do this. Like, yeah. So it's a good format. It's a good way.
Guys, you know why these raise so much money? I'm going to break it down for you right now.
Uh-oh.
It's because the marathon organizers are, for one time, with their donation incentives, being bold about it. It's not this. We've talked about it, Golden. We've talked about how the donation incentives don't mean anything. People aren't donating because they're like, it's going to get met.
For sure.
Like, who cares? Like, oh, okay, we'll throw some number out there that we know is going to be met, as opposed to something that we're going to put a little bit out of reach, which is when people usually achieve greatness. $300,000 needs to be met in order for Mario 64 to get up there 120 star. Make it happen. All of a sudden, half the money from the marathon comes in.
It's suddenly frantic. Yeah. It's not so much. I mean, you've seen it in previous marathons too, where day 3 comes and every single incentive is met and everybody's happy. Everybody's run's going to be in. It almost feels too safe sometimes, where it's like, okay, if we only put 500 on this, you could ignore it until 15 minutes beforehand and it'll get met. But instead, if you go, hey, wait a minute, this isn't happening, guys, unless you raise 10 grand. And then on the spot it happens. I don't know.
It's hard
to
set those targets.
Yeah.
And I will say one thing that, you know, I can't remember any. There have been some donation incentives that haven't been met in the past. But can you ever think of like a big time donation incentive that didn't get met? Because I can't. All the big time ones do get met. So maybe it's more kind of a thing of like shoot higher with what you know is a big time donation incentive, like what Spike's saying.
I agree with
that. And then keep the other ones a little bit more moderate.
I certainly think it doesn't work for every game, and especially if you're going to try to do it, you know, like one right after the other. But I do think it is something to be learned from, and you know, it really gets over that slump, that feeling of just like we're not getting donations at the pace that we expected. It really starts motivating people and getting them going. And you can even see it just by looking at the chat. You know, they're rallying behind it, and every time there's a big donation, they get excited. So, yeah, I thought it was a really clever way to get the donors back going.
Yeah, and also too, the whole prize aspect of the donations too, I think is a huge factor as well. I felt the prizes. I mean, I didn't really know much about the prizes this time around. I mean, I know there was the big headsets and all of that, but I just feel like too, the whole, donating during a certain time, you can get entered in and win this prize. I felt like there was more, maybe bigger prizes than kind of smaller ones that were sprinkled around to spread, the donations around.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about that. Actually, we can transition. So prizes themselves this year. What did you guys think about their, first of all, like their availability, and also, did you think they got mentioned enough? Was there, work to be done there? Was it, covered well? What did you think?
I think you can always mention them more, but mentioning is only so much. Like people's brains only remember so much of what you tell them. What you show them is going to have a much longer lasting effect. And Rom Scout said it himself in the suggestions topic. They dropped the ball on it. They just, they didn't have pictures for everything. We got 5 minutes of setup where you're watching, dudes' butt cracks, setting up tables. Can we cut for 15 seconds away to look at this awesome copy of Mega Man X 1 and 2 that you're going to be able to enter in for if you throw down $15 right now?
Right
now.
I felt like maybe it was just the times I was in the room, but I felt like I never saw a prize this event. I never even knew where the prize table was.
Yeah, me neither. I never saw them personally. I only saw pictures that were taken of.
The only prize I saw was one that I plugged during one of my runs, and that was about it.
Sure.
So.
I mean, I certainly, when I was on the host stand, I was reminding people, hey, if you donate this amount of money, you could win this prize. And I noticed just by watching during those runs that if you told people about the prizes, they would donate that much money to try to win the prize. So there's interest there. There's people who want to do that and are looking for that excuse to donate, if you will. But yeah, I kind of felt like, hey, could we have a picture on the website of the prize you can win? Could we show it off on the stream? I kind of felt like this time around we kind of missed that compared to maybe AGDQ. But yeah, I don't know. It's another one of those interesting things that could motivate people to donate. So, and then in addition to that, I also felt like the availability of the prizes, and maybe understandably so if it's SGDQ, but it seemed like not every game or every game block had a prize to even donate for.
Right.
Yeah.
One other thing I was thinking is with how far ahead of schedule we were, we really should have been showing the prizes that much more, just because of the fact of like, hey, that's a good way to kill some time and get more donations in and get back on schedule all at once.
Yeah, like you're saying, like not even kill time. We should be doing this in the first place. But yeah, there's a lot more that needs to be done. And again, we'll go into this more in the future, but the GDQs are starting to get in a rhythm of it's run, setup, run, setup, run, setup, run, setup. There's no breathing room. There's no time to say, you know what? We're giving you 150 straight hours of speed running. But let's also remember that this is a charity event. Let's show you what else there is, what you can be donating for. Let's show you some of the runners. But we got a lot that can be done.
Yeah. Any other thoughts on, I guess, prizes in general, or did we cover that?
I think we covered it. Yeah,
okay.
We covered it.
So let's move on, and as long as we're bringing it up, we'll kind of keep popping off ideas here. But you mentioned the schedule getting way ahead. Obviously, this is kind of an unforeseen expectation. You go to plan the schedule and you expect this run to start at this time, and in a perfect world that always happens. But I'd say this is the first time we've seen a marathon consistently be ahead throughout.
Yeah.
And first of all, what did you guys think of the bonus games that were added?
I really liked them. Certainly Bucky O'Hare was a great choice. Enjoyed that one quite a bit. So,
Deadeye is a duck.
Deadeye is a duck. That's
Tell us a little bit.
Thank you for clearing that up.
Yeah, you're welcome.
That was unforgettable for sure. It was quite the moment. So, yeah, I believe some other games that were added. We had Mario Kart 64 got added in as kind of a catch-up game.
I think there was a Tony Hawk game got added in.
Yeah, the Super Mario World race that you were a part of, I believe, was that wasn't planned, right? That was improvised.
No, that was. I mean, I'll go more into detail in a bit later, but yeah, that was literally about, I'd say halfway through Duckfist's SMB3 run that got thrown in. So yeah, that was.
Wow.
That was definitely a bonus.
So, where Spike, let's go to you on this because I feel like you're gonna knock this one out of the park. But what contributes to, who do we place the blame on, I guess, for getting too far ahead? Is that something that the runners can take care of? Is that something that the host should be doing something about? What's kind of your take on it? Like, how can we avoid that happening in the future?
Well, I'll start by saying I love everyone. I love my community. They're all great.
Disclaimer.
But a lot of us involved can in some way take some blame. It should be never something that should happen. You've got from the very start. Well, actually, okay, let me say, even if like we got ahead of schedule at the marathon itself, there should be an instance where we can say, okay, we're 5 minutes ahead of schedule. The game ended 5 minutes early. Let's do something for 5 minutes. Let's show a prize. Let's read donations. I don't care. Let's read some random comments from Twitch chat. Oh, that's probably not a good idea. But, do something instead of, all right, we got to get the next game up and we got to keep moving forward. And I will say, to defend that a little bit, I think there is a general fear that has gone around the GDQs for a while now that generally we've been many hours behind schedule.
Sure.
So there's this idea of like, oh, okay, well, if we're getting 5 minutes right here, let's just take that 5 minutes and roll with it and just go. The biggest thing I will say, and I've been an advocate of this for a little while now, is that day one, coming up in a few weeks or so, when AGDQ asks for their game submissions, don't have me as the runner give you game time plus setup, because setup means nothing to me. Setup's a random number pulled out of a hat that we think is making Mike and Rom or the other organizers happy. What you've got an instance of is I should give you, all right, Sinister One, I'm going to go to you on this one. You want to submit Turtles in Time. Trust me, you want to do it again. All right, tell me the worst case possible scenario that game time's going to be.
Worst case would be like 21:30 or something like that.
Okay, 21:30. I'm going to give that to you. Well, Mike and all the organizers know it's a Super Nintendo game, so they're going to add X amount of minutes to that, and there's your estimate. Instead of, there's this general idea that I get from them that's like, well, especially for longer games. And I run longer games. I do run longer games. And it's like, for every 30 minutes your game is, you're supposed to add 5 minutes of setup time. What does that mean? Just because my game is 10 hours long, it probably still takes 5 minutes to set up. So why are we adding 6 hours of setup time to it? And then, oh no, we're ahead of schedule. Whoopsie doodle. Like, I don't know. Like I know I'm being a little crazy right now, but
it's the medicine talking.
It's all the medicine talking.
Spike
gloves are off.
I love this, by the way. I just got to point out, I love this animation here. He's
no holds
passionate.
barred.
Yeah, but no, I see your point. Like the expectation has kind of always been when you go to submit a game, always include what you think the estimate is going to be, but how is my opinion going to dictate how the tech staff handles what they set up, and how am I supposed to know maybe my game is part of an NES block, so all I have to do is put my game in and I'm ready to go, or maybe I'm after a PC game and they've got to swap the entire setup. I
would guarantee they do not factor that into setup, just what you just said about like NES games, because it's always an NES block where they have like 6 NES games in a row.
Right.
And they don't factor in the part that, oh, well, you just have to put the game in the console.
It's literally pop the last card out, put the next one in, and go.
We're going, yeah. So here's my question to you guys then. So I kind of have this theory going in my head that it might never be a good thing to get ahead of schedule. I'll just explain a little bit what I mean. I feel like for both the viewers and the runners, it's kind of a security thing. If I go to bed expecting my run to be at 8 in the morning, and then I get woken up and told like, hey, you got to go. Your run's on at 6 o'clock and we're 2 hours ahead. Right. I kind of feel like that's a bad thing compared to, hey, we're like an hour late. Well, okay, I still slept the amount that I expected. Right. And now I'm a little bit behind.
Definitely.
I feel like from a runner's perspective, it's so secure knowing like I can go get food at this time. I know that my run is going to, like, worst case scenario, the earliest it's going to be is X time.
Yeah, I'd like to touch on that because that actually happened to me. I had, Rescue Rangers 2 was scheduled very early in the morning, and, we had gotten far ahead of schedule, so it was already, I think it was already at like 4 or something like that. But the rate at which we were gaining time, I was not comfortable to just wake up and be ready at 4 a.m. I was like, shit, dude, we could be ahead by another hour by that time.
Right.
So it's like, I'm like, do I sleep? Do I not sleep? What, you don't really, yeah. So I agree that it's worse. It's definitely worse to be ahead of schedule than to be behind. Neither one is optimal, but if you're going to pick one, I think you'd rather be behind schedule.
Yeah. And obviously you don't want to get too far behind either because that bothers people. But so in addition to like runner security, I think it also is kind of a security for the viewer as well. They expect a run. They look at the schedule. Let's say I look at the schedule on Monday.
Right. Yeah, they're missing things.
Right. I look at the schedule on Monday and it says, the run that I want to see on Friday is at 7 o'clock. And then I get back there on Friday at 7 o'clock and we're like 2 days ahead of schedule, right? And the run that I wanted to watch is over.
Yeah.
So I kind of feel like it's a double security for both the runner and the viewer that if you say my run's at 3 o'clock, it starts no earlier than 3 o'clock. And if we have to fill time somehow, we can, plug the prizes like Spike was saying earlier. We can plug the donations, read more donations that didn't get a chance to be read during the run. Talk about the sponsors, talk about the T-shirts. I feel like there's so much we can fill time.
Yeah,
with.
there's tons of ways to fill time, and this is something that, I mean, you got to realize we've had a relatively small amount of these GDQs,
right?
So it's and this has probably been the single biggest challenge in all the GDQs together. The common factors, getting and staying on schedule.
Right.
It's just so hard.
And I think it's a learning experience, though. I mean, obviously, this isn't something that you can just have happen and then immediately have a solution for. But I think it's something we can learn from now. Where I would think that we're able to fill that time. And the thing is, when you gain time, you're really gaining it in increments, right? You're not gaining all 1 hour and a half at the end of one run. If you are, then that estimate was really bad. But, but so you're usually gaining it maybe like 5 or 10 minutes at a time. And so as long as you take that 5 minutes and just be patient and say, hey, the next run is scheduled to start at this time. We'll start it at this time. I think that's a much, much better way to do it. Anyway, that's my thought on that. But yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting new problem that previous GDQs didn't have. It was kind of the opposite for that. But I don't know. I guess on that topic, the bonus games themselves, we all kind of agree they were pretty good. Some good additions based on what was available. You kind of had to dig and find out who could offer what, but the talent that was there in the bonus games was good. What are you guys' thoughts on that, though, as far as do you think it would have been any different if they were bonus stream games instead of bonus games in the marathon? Do you think they would have had a similar reception?
It's tough to say. I mean, it depends. There's a lot of games that get in bonus stream here, so I think I think you do have to draw the line somewhere. But obviously, you're going to be a little more lenient when you're trying to fill that space. And we got lucky. Obviously, you have enough talented speedrunners around. Of course, they know other games, and they're like, oh yeah, sure, I can do this. And it's not going to be the most polished run. Obviously, they have oh well, you have 3 hours to get ready. Go start grinding some practice or whatever.
Sure.
But yeah.
But I kind of think they know when they're signing up for that, right? Like I think Garrison kind of had the impression that okay, I'll do Bucky, but I wasn't really expecting to do it, so.
Yeah,
whatever
happens.
happens.
Expectations aren't high. Nobody's like, oh, he's gonna get record on this run or anything. It's like, all right.
So let me ask you, Killa, because you were kind of in that situation where you're kind of getting thrown in. When did you first know that you were going to be a part of the race? Was it while you were sitting on the couch, or did you know like going into it?
Well, Sweetie T was just talking about like trying to get me involved in some way other than couch, and it just so happened. Well. The funny thing was, I know we were sitting at a table and Rom Scout was just joking around. I think he was trying to ask around for like a 30, 40-minute game. And he's like, Killa, I could even have you run a game. And I'm just like, I really have nothing. Like, I jokingly said, I could do all switch run. Ha 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 ha.
Yeah, right. You're trying to play it off.
Yeah, just laughed it off. But, I think that was the day before. And then the day of, like I said, we were just kind of waiting around for Duckfist to get done. And Rom Scout comes up and asks Sweetie, do you have a category that's about 30 minutes long to play after your game? And we'll throw it in as a donation incentive. And he just looks right at me, and I'm just like shaking my head. Like, okay, sure. I was like not sure about it at first because I'm like, I'm not good at this game. Like, why are you asking me to do this? I'm gonna be really bad and whatever. I mean, I just was freaking out, but I mean, yeah, I literally was 10 minutes before the Lunar Dragon run. So, I mean,
Okay, so you were put on the spot. You
yeah,
had
I was
to,
put on the spot. It was kind of overwhelming, but you know, I mean, everyone else like just saying, "Who cares? Just do it. It's gonna be fun." It was fine, but yeah, the initial like getting yourself in that mindset. Like I know Sinister, you said you don't want to just wake up and oh, I have to do a run. Well, that's kind of how it felt for me. Like, oh, okay, I'm awake. I'm ready. Let me prepare. But I mean, yeah, it's overwhelming at first, but once you get settled in, it's not too bad.
All right, I just linked a poll, by the way. We're going to try to keep this show interactive, so I linked a poll for all you guys in chat to answer. We're going to try to bounce some questions off you guys throughout the show. So the first question was just, in general, I felt like that Mario World race was really well received. You know, given the spontaneity of it, it was just kind of like a spur-of-the-moment idea. And I think it's fair to say I don't want to say like any offense to Ribbed Killa here, so don't take any. But I think it's fair to say that wasn't the top level Super Mario World play from any of them, right?
It was
Yeah,
the most it was the most technical.
There you go. It was the most technical. Most technical.
But yeah, no.
But this is my point, right? Like I think there's this preconceived notion that the only way a run can be good at a marathon is if the highest skilled player is playing. And I feel like you guys proved a point with your Super Mario World race that that's absolutely not true. You guys raised, first of all, $10,000 in the time of that race. From the time it started to the time it finished. I was sitting there on the donation stand watching it. It raised 10 grand in that 30-minute time frame or whatever it was. So people were donating like crazy. The chat was going nuts. The room was having a good time. That room was silent for a decent majority of that day. And then suddenly we had chants going. People were getting excited about different players. I just felt like it was such a shocker that was kind of the turning point as far as just atmosphere. Let's take a look here.
Sorry, go ahead.
I'm just going to look at the results of the chat here. So I said, do you want to see more races like the Super Mario World race at future GDQs? 91% said yes, 94 people, and 9%, 9 votes said no. So
Can't please everyone.
There we go. That's I'm going to just put it on the stream for a quick second. We can keep it up there. There it is, right in the center, right over Spike's face.
Oh.
Well, I think it helped a lot that it wasn't, the most serious, because then people feel okay about just cheering and having fun. Whereas, like, during certain races, people are like, should I cheer? Should I shut up? Is this serious time? Like, I don't want to,
right?
But that nervousness was kind of taken away for this race, and I think that was really positive because it did let everybody get involved, and the energy in the room was really, really good. It was it's not the kind of energy you have in the room often at a GDQ.
And so on that note, do you think every race has to be serious, or do you kind of like this influx of I just want to use as examples in the practice room. I felt like there were some good races going on back there that could have been on the marathon stage and they would have been well received. I thought the Ivan versus Twig 70 star that went on was a big deal. I mean, it had a crowd of people around it. People were making noise every time somebody got a star. They were so close, 7 seconds apart. And for a decent chunk of the race, they were screen for screen. He grabs a star, he grabs a star. I thought that was exciting. I thought the X race between Tiki and Caleb backstage was good too. I don't think that would have gotten on stage.
No,
they were a little intoxicated.
It was a world record, though. It was a
little bit
drunk world record. But yeah, I just felt like in general, some of these lighthearted races that maybe aren't as serious could still be well received.
Well, either that or, leave it up to the runners. If the runners are okay with people just going nuts, then, say that at the beginning of the race. Just be like, hey, like you said when at the beginning of Super Mario World, I said you something like, hey, feel free to cheer, get hype, whatever. And then that's kind of when people are like, oh, okay, all right, let's do this then.
Yeah.
So, I think there's really no harm in that as long as the runners are okay with it.
Exactly.
I know maybe
I think that's...
Yeah, certain runners may be like, I really want to focus or something like that, which that's fine. You know.
I think it's kind of a mix of styles, right? Some of us are just like, hey, whatever happens, happens. Let's have a good time. And then others are really intent on having the best run possible. And, that's okay too. I think that's fine. I think it's a good mix. It's just nice to start to actually see more of the mix and not just everybody's run has to be super serious. It doesn't, you know, always have to work that way. I think we've shown that it can work both ways.
Yeah.
So let's move on, though. Let's talk about races in general. So I just posted another poll in the chat asking what everybody's favorite race was. I didn't include all of them. I just included some of the races, so I'll give you guys a chance to vote there. But let's just ask you guys, what did you guys think was the maybe the best race, or one that you enjoyed the most, and maybe a reason why?
Oh, man.
I think I stumped them. They're speechless.
No, I've just been talking a lot. I was hoping somebody else would jump in.
Somebody else.
No, yeah.
Killa, what race did you enjoy? Let's not include yourself here. Obviously, yours was good.
No, we won't.
But
I'd have to say the DKC2. I was a big fan of. Just because I knew, like, in terms of what you have listed, I knew that game the most out of the other ones. Because just sitting there being able to watch them play. I mean, it was a good race. Some things happened that I've never even seen before, like Gary kind of soft locking at the end to have Twig catch back up. It was just back and forth the whole time. I really enjoyed that race a lot. I also watched the X2 race from my room, and I know that was pretty good for me. Never really seeing that game run before. It was a pretty close race up until the end. So, but yeah, I definitely have to go to the DKC2. Was probably my most favorite race for sure.
Okay, I agree with what you said there. I mean, that was a race that up until the very end looked like it was one-sided, and then all of a sudden, all of us that were side betting on Twig had a chance.
I was freaking out, man. I was so excited.
There was a glimmer of hope, like he's gonna do it, and then there was the handing of the $5 over to the guy sitting behind me. But
that was impressive.
It's a completely different ballpark you're going into when you decide this is going to be a race instead of a solo game. A solo game can rest on, the run, in truth, doesn't even have to be great for it to be a success at a marathon if it's a solo run. Is the commentary good? Is the room energy good? Did you show off a lot of good stuff throughout it? All of a sudden, a race is its own thing. You kind of have to have this, like, in my opinion, a storyline that comes along with it being a race. And, how do you create that storyline? You have a clear favorite. You have a clear underdog. You had, Garrison and Twig doing DKC2. All of a sudden, like, we're rooting for Twig because screw Gary. What a jerk he is. Yeah, right. No, but, we know Gary's the favorite. And all of a sudden you see, oh, no, he soft locked or whatever the heck you call what he did. He wasted time for a minute. And then all of a sudden, Twig takes the lead. All of a sudden, everyone's invested now.
Yeah.
The thing about when it is a race, you can't always guarantee that. You're not always going to have situations where whoever's in the lead lets it go for some reason, or there's something they're showing off. So it's an interesting situation going into it with a race. From that standpoint, I really enjoyed the DKC2 race, even though, as it turned out, Toxic Tower claimed another one. It was still really exciting to see us invested like that. And I know we said we shouldn't really pick it, but Super Mario World, how do you get the room invested like that as it was? And, how do you make that a thing for all of even the quote unquote serious races throughout the marathon?
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly a challenge. Sinister One, go ahead. Let you jump in.
I was gonna go with X1, and reason why, first of all, just numbers wise, it was the closest race out of all the races at the GDQ, but that's not even why. I would say it's really more about like the level of hype that was built around that race. It's the rematch between Tiki and Caleb. Tiki and Caleb have a rivalry already. They're both kind of like the best Mega Man X players, and like living up to that is really hard. It's hard to live up to the hype of that kind of race, and they both did. It was, obviously it was super close, and it was heartbreaking for Tiki, but they both executed really well overall, and it was, there was some lead changes and things like that. So, yeah, I'd been looking forward to that race anyway. I think pretty much everybody was kind of looking forward to that race. So, yeah, I would go with that one. And the other ones that you guys mentioned are obviously awesome too, but I'm going X1.
All right. Yeah, I kind of liked with X1, Tiki's obviously going to be disappointed that he failed the cutscene skip, but I'm glad that it was something execution related that determined the result of that race, and it wasn't something like, oh, I had the worst RNG of the two players.
Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it really boiled down to fundamentals, and I think that, you know, at first it was kind of like, oh, really heartbreaking for not just for Tiki, but you know, everybody that's watching is like, oh, I can't believe that, you know, determined it. But then, you know, you kind of get a chance to think about it a little bit, and okay, at least it wasn't the luck,
right?
That had the final say.
It's like when, you know, no offense to any of the other racers in any of the races, but watching Caleb and Tiki race is almost like watching two machines at their highest level. That it felt like at a certain point it's just going to be determined by, oh, well, Caleb got X bad luck and Tiki got this bad luck and this boss gave them this pattern. So it was, I love Tiki to death, but it was nice to see something other than just how many slips and how many dives decide what the race was.
Mm-hmm. And then let's see here. Let's carry the same notion here of the races over to just the individual runs, the solo runs. I'm going to ask you guys in the chat as well a particular question, but I think we can all agree there's one run that comes to mind when we think of best runs of the marathon. Do we have to even can we count of 3, just say what it is? Or
all right,
sure.
Do a countdown.
All right. We'll do it on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Mega
Man 3.
Hey.
Yay.
Killer was like Super Mario Brothers.
No.
That was Mega Man. Run,
I loved Cac's run, by the way. That was really impressive stuff. And he had to compete with the loud noise the whole time too. Okay, so that in mind, I think that was kind of the takeaway run is like, wow, that's really good. And Checkers won't agree, but I thought that run was really solid. I'm going to ask you guys in chat if you thought that was the best run of the event. We'll see what the results say. Maybe you guys have something else in mind. If you do, and you're in chat, give me another game that impressed you. Jack, if we're going with Mischief Makers, understandable,
unbiased opinion.
I believe that's concentrating on all of the runs as a whole. He kind of thought about it and came to a conclusion.
Did we have a poll for best race? Or did we not?
We did. I didn't actually show it on the stream here, but let me refresh it. I'll put it up there quick.
What was the result of that one?
Yeah, let me put it up on the stream just a second. I'll let you guys at home see it too. And then we'll look at the results of the other one too. So this was which of these races did you think was the best at SGDQ? Super Mario World had the most votes, 38 votes, 39%. Mega Man X came in second, X2, and then Donkey Kong Country 2. So and it was pretty close between those. Those are only maybe a few votes apart, but it looks like SMW kind of had the lead there at least. So that's an interesting result. What do you think of that, Killa? You were part of the final split, viewership's favorite race.
It's great. Just the fact that how it came to be and how it was just really cool to be part of it.
All right, I have the results here of this other question that we asked, and it's interesting to me. I'm excited to talk about this, and I'm curious to see what people are thinking when we look at this result. Checkers Mega Man 3 run, no. 38 votes, just slightly beating yes. So a little less than half of the people would agree that that was the best run, but I'm curious to see what some of the other suggestions are here. I pulled up chat over the poll there, but let's take a look here. Looks like we've got some votes for some. I see KSS showing up a few times.
That was a good run.
Kirby Superstar, good commentary. I heard it was difficult for Countdown at times, but pulled through. I see a couple people again supporting CAC. I thought that run, I brought that up already, but that was kind of where we started to hit this point where this other room was competing with us.
Yeah.
And there was loud noise, and it started getting really distracting. And I felt like he hit a point in that run where he was on the verge of, I can't even speak. It's so exciting. He was on the verge of gaming over, I think.
Yeah.
And he had to clutch it out.
Yeah, he did.
That was really impressive.
Dude, he was so calm too with his commentary. He's just like deadpan commentary while everybody else is freaking out like, oh my god. And he's just like keeping it so cool. And now I'm gonna do this frame perfect trick. And if I die, it's game over, but I'm going to go for it anyway.
Whatever.
I got it.
Yeah.
I got it.
You're just like, you could list off like every cool achievement in the world and you just be like, thank you. Like, you're president of the United States. Thanks.
Right.
You won an Emmy. Oh, that's great. But
Yeah, he was killing it though, man. That was there was like tension in the room. Certain runs are very very tense for viewers, and that was definitely one of them.
I see other people saying Boshi was really good. I didn't actually watch that one, but I understand that the commentary for Boshi was excellent.
Yeah, I believe Witwix and It's Okay to Hate Bananas, I think, were actually the two that gained the most followers, that became the most Twitch famous off of their runs. So whatever you want to take from that. I did hear the Boshi run was very, very good. So
lots of people liking ZZT as well, Cosmo's little quirky DOS game that had Dacid Bro baffled on the microphone. He was having trouble keeping up. As was most of the room, because I think that run consisted mostly of lack of commentary. It was just like, I'm going to show you this quirky game, and you're not going to understand what's going on, and it's done. And that usually works. That usually baffles people. And I think that was a good success. So lots of different choices. I'm glad that there is kind of a variety, but also kind of intrigued that many people were in agreement about Mega Man 3. So cool.
It's hard. I mean, as someone who I'm an expert, I've started learning Mega Man 3, and just the thought of executing stages like Gemini Man, stuff like getting the one cycle on Yellow Devil, thoughts of doing stuff like that in front of everybody live with that much pressure on you, I gotta hand it to Checkers. That was amazing to watch. So
he took it in stride for sure.
Yeah,
that whole block in general was really, really good.
Yeah, I mean, is it safe to say that I think we all get a little nervous when we get to do a run, but some people handle it better than others? I feel like that's what happened there, where it was, Checkers was maybe a little nervous when he sat down. I don't know. Ask him, but the execution was all there, and he knew what he was doing. And some people are just experts at that, where it doesn't matter how many people are sitting behind me. It doesn't matter what noise is going on in that other room. I'm still going to hit this trick every time because I practice it so much. I can't press like 2 buttons on the controller without doing something wrong when I'm sitting in that chair. But I thought it was a really impressive run. A lot of fun. That whole block was really good.
Mm-hmm. Big shout outs to Darkman for also having a very, a mid 37 and it being a Mega Man 5, less than a minute off world record in his own run, having to follow up what Checkers had just done.
Yeah.
I was like, this could be Spaghetti Central. Who knows?
That whole block, it just felt like, here's more runs I have to follow up. Like, thanks, guys. Like, you couldn't screw up just a little bit for me. Like, all right.
And thankfully, the camera just fell and all the pressure was off.
Yeah, that's right. we didn't have to worry about if we screwed up because Mom wouldn't get to see. So, all right, I want to move on. Let's talk about something completely different. This is one topic that people have kind of bounced back and forth on, and I want to find out what the chat thinks as well. Please answer this poll only if you were at the event, since you wouldn't really know if you were a viewer at home. This has to do with convention space. So when we first got a chance to see it before the event, I think we kind of all gawked at the idea of like, holy crap, this is big. This convention space is big. Having been there and been a part of it, did you like the size of it? Was it too big? Was it too small? Did it work well? Would you go back and use the same kind of space again? What did you guys think?
I personally loved the space and what we had. And I'm kind of comparing it from what it was to AGDQ compared to SGDQ. And I definitely loved how more spread out everything was. You never felt, too crowded, or, in the stream room there was plenty of room for people and it wasn't too congested. And like the practice room never, got too muggy or too crowded or too hot, or I know people were complaining it was too cold, but I was a bigger fan of the bigger space for like just the room to kind of do the things you wanted to do. The cleanliness was a lot better because of the fact that we had so much more space to roam.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which was, I know, a huge factor. I feel if me personally, I guess I almost feel like I was spoiled in a way with all that space. I feel like if for me personally, if we don't have that much space again, and also too, like I'm not the smallest guy in the world. I'll just throw that out there. And it was nice to not always, be in someone's way or, be able to freely move in and out wherever. And also too, for having so much space to, I guess, transfer equipment from, like, quickly. Oh, I need a Super Nintendo for this quick run. Can I grab it without having to trip over people and push people aside?
Yeah, because I mean, you were at HDQ as well, right?
Yeah, I was.
And what did you think compared to HDQ? I mean, did you have trouble at HDQ moving around some of those rooms?
Yes,
Okay.
I did. I come to find myself, I was in a lot of people's way, especially in like the practice room. I didn't go so much into the melee room, just because, yeah, it was way small and there's way too many people in it. But yeah, I definitely felt like I was in the way a lot at HDQ.
Okay.
But yeah, I personally love the space. I was a huge fan. I hope we can able to get something that big in the future.
Let me ask a open question to everybody here. Is anyone gonna be willing to say that it was too big? Was there, or were there parts of it that were too big, or did you feel like maybe we just hit the mark and that was it?
No, I'd rather have too much space than too little. So
Yeah,
I don't think so. Think you can go too big.
I'm not going to complain ever about having too much size for us to work with because, like people are saying in chat, we're just going to keep growing, and you have to accommodate for that. I've got some things, maybe the layout of the room. I know, at least as a host, I greatly preferred where I was sitting for AGDQ.
Yeah.
I liked, in my own words, I liked being able to spit on the runners that close to them. I liked that it was easier for the host and the runners to almost like have a better synergy, for us to be able to work off each other a little easier. And I felt like at SGDQ that was just impossible.
Right.
And you've got a lot of cases of complaints for that.
Yeah, there was a decent chunk of the marathon room itself that wasn't used for anything. It was just kind of open space. But I don't feel like that was so much a problem as it was the amount of space that was between host and runner. That kind of killed the interaction a little bit. I mean, even if it wasn't space, at AGDQ, you were at least as the runner able to kind of do one of these and just like look over to the host like, okay, go ahead. You know?
Right.
And just having the host be, physically behind the runner, it kind of ability to like, okay, you can read donations now, or whatever it might be. And it kind of felt like the host was separate from the group, and not a part of it. And I feel like previous GDQs, it was more like the host is just kind of an extension of the couch, where they're not commentating on the game, but they're an active part of that front row discussion.
Yeah, right.
So, yeah, I agree with you on that. I think the practice space was great. I loved having that much space.
Yeah.
That
was so
love the practice room. I gotta ask you guys. I'll switch around and be the interviewer for a second. What did you guys think about the I guess casual room and the eating room being right there next to them? I will say personally, I did not mind that. I know some people did. Did any of you have a problem with it all being kind of connected like that?
Not at all. I mean, it's just it was easier to get from one place to the other.
Agreed.
I have the results to just to quick let you know. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but looks like about 50% said it was fine, 50% said it was too big, and a few trolls said it was too small. No, I don't. Maybe they actually thought it was too small. I don't know.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I'm more interested that so many people did vote too big, that it was just too much. It's like you said, if you take anything from it, there was a lot of space that just wasn't being used. But I don't know. Again, there was still a handful of runs here and there where there wasn't enough seating space in order to see everything. So
yeah, standing room only at times.
Yeah,
depending on what it was. But I almost think that's a much better problem to have than the opposite, where you're looking for people to fill the seats.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
I think this is something we talked about a little bit once, but let's just talk maybe about just the webcam, how it's positioned, like what people get to see. Do you ever feel like the current layout, do you like it compared to what it used to be? Do you think, like kind of having that separation between like, here's the audience, here's the couch, instead of like straight on, here's the couch, here's all of the audience? Do you like that dynamic? Do you think it works well? Is there one way that you like more than the other? What do you think? Or do you think it even matters?
I personally don't think it matters. I mean, the one negative, I guess you could say, of having everything in there is it may take, it may take away from the runner a little bit if people are focusing on stuff going on behind them. But I personally feel like it's kind of cool to see, how the people there are reacting, because maybe people could feed off of, especially if you don't know a game that you're watching and you see people in the background starting to get really hyped for a certain area. then the person watching can be like, oh, okay, I need to start focusing too because everyone else is. But I just think it's a nice little dynamic just to see people like from the outside looking in kind of thing too. So that's kind of my state on it.
If there's anything I'd like to see, I don't know how complicated it would be. I would think it, well, I'm not going to go into that. I'm not gonna act like a tech person. But how hard would it be to switch camera angles as the run goes? Let's say someone just hits a big trick, and then we can switch to, oh, let's see what the audience thinks of that. Woo! Like whatever, like goes to, or they're empty.
The reaction cam or whatever. It might be. Yeah.
Right. Or maybe it switches to the host cam, and like maybe they're reading off something like a good story or just like a big donation or something. Maybe there's some downtime in the run where you don't really have to look at the couch the entire time. So, because like we've said, we kind of want to see less almost from, well, we want to see next to nothing from behind the couch. And, you know, we don't want to see people doing whatever they're doing.
Yeah.
That's also
trying to find some way to become the star of the show, something like that.
Right.
So I saw Spike in the back row for some of those runs doing things he shouldn't have been doing. I don't know. There was
hypocrite.
Maybe a snap or two that got
well,
sent to
when
me.
I do it, it's funny.
Okay. As long as it's funny, then okay.
It's not awkward. Let's be real here. No, I'd like to see more jumping around. I'd like to see more, again, just ways to engage the audience. Like, look at all this other stuff that's going on. And here's a shot of the prize that if you donate during the marathon or donate during this run or this block, you get this. Shoutouts to Grimace. Yes. But yeah, I'd like to see other things we could do with it. Try and do stuff.
Maybe we'll go from there then and talk about interviews, since that's kind of something that was new this year. It's tried out for the first time. So there weren't a lot of them. There were a few. It was kind of maybe like a once a day thing. And it seemed to me like the people who were being interviewed, it wasn't so much like your run is coming up next, so I'm going to interview you, or your run just finished, so I'm going to interview you. It was more just, here are some people I want to spotlight. Let's do an interview.
Right.
Going off of that, what did you think of the interviews just in general? And then, if you liked them, what went well? If you didn't like them, what do you think should change?
Well, I think like you said, the timing is what was off. The interviews itself, the format, questions, dynamic, all that stuff was fine. But, the timing, it's like some of these people are like, well, who is this guy? His run was 2 days ago or whatever it was. Like, you got to hit it when it's hot. So it's right before the run, right after the run. Those are good interview times, I would think. But I hope that they continue to keep it, just adjust the timing a bit,
Sure.
and keep it as part of marathon.
And to be fair, I feel like this was maybe kind of more of a spur of the moment decision as well, where it was like, hey, I don't know the specifics of it, but maybe it was thought of during the week while they were there. Maybe it was pre-planned, but it kind of, to me, I got the impression that it was like, hey, we would just want to fill some time here. Let's get a little.
Sure. And I'll give you another example real quick, just because, they were doing this in fun and it was all very jokey and everything, but when they did the Fighting Masters stuff, they were interviewing the participants during certain segments of that part of the bonus stream, and it was fantastic. Spike was part of it. Spike knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I was watching that from home. That went over just great. Like, everybody loved that, and it looked phenomenal. So, that's kind of more the timing aspect that I'm talking about,
This is something that's right in front of you. It's about to happen. Let's make this happen. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat with that. Just getting people more, like, I don't know. There's also timing where you can say, there's probably, not to knock on anybody, but you could probably have someone like a Cosmo or a Sig or, one of the bigger name guys on at any time, and people are going to be engaged. People will just say, oh, we'll flock to watch that.
Here's my thought on the interviews. The biggest complaint that I've heard about it is that they're too esports, and there's this concept. I don't know if this is the right time to bring this up, but I want to get on my pedestal for a second because Spike got on his earlier in the show, and I want to one up it.
Okay, I'll let it go.
So there's this concept that floats around the speedrunning community called "that's too esports," and what this concept is people who don't understand the difference between esports and production value. They're two different
Right.
things. I think you can have good production value and it's still not esports. So like I like the idea of these interviews because I think it engages the audience. It's exactly what we were looking for before the GDQs, where we said, hey, we really need to find ways to fill time. It's creative. It gets people to know the runners better who maybe don't have that exposure. You start to see some familiarity even with the interviewers themselves. You start to, you know, recognize, oh, hey, Pie's doing the interviews. I know who that is now. It's not just,
Right.
you know, he showed up for one run. Oh, he's a recurring character. I get to know him a little bit better. I think
Right.
there's this notion that, oh, if we start to do interviews and that kind of thing, hey, we're heading down that esports route. But I don't see any sponsors on anyone's jersey. I don't see people wearing jerseys. I don't see people making money off of the fact that they,
No.
you know, had a good GDQ run. So I really think there is a difference between esports and production value. And I
Yeah,
like these
and
interviews. I'd like to see more.
And I will say that the production value is one thing that, you know, while it has obviously improved, it hasn't improved proportionately with how much we've grown. You know, that's in terms of the amount of people, the amount of money, all that kind of stuff. That's all grown at a much faster rate. Production value's been kind of slow to move, and that's something I hope that we can kind of get, you know, let's fast track that a little bit. Let's get the
Yeah.
production value up.
Yeah, and I think we're starting to see that. I mean, you know, even little things like having music playing between the runs, that was cool.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
creative. It was something that,
Yeah.
you know, just tries to keep it from being monotonous between runs. And I like
Right.
that that's experimented with. I know, Spike, you and I were a little disappointed. We wanted to kind of do like a little pregame show or whatever for SGDQ. But I hope that that gets explored at AGDQ. I hope that's something that, you know, okay, let's take a chance on it. Let's see if it engages people, if they're interested
Yeah.
in it. And if it doesn't
Right.
work, then you can, you know, just remove it next time around. But I like that some of these things are actually explored and tried. Because we're not going to know how they work until we actually try them. So I
Yeah.
that's the
Exactly.
biggest thing I think to take away from the interviews.
And people are watching for entertainment. So, you know, usually
Right,
production
exactly.
value contributes to entertainment. It doesn't take away from the level of entertainment. It usually builds the level of entertainment. So let's do it.
Don't overly simplify this as just an event to raise money. And we are trying to raise money here. I don't think anybody wants to see us raise a smaller amount of money. We're trying to raise more. So how do you raise more? Do you put on even more great speed runs? You do what you can. But the number one way you do it is by putting on a great show, is by entertaining people for 150 hours straight. And stuff like this, having great interviews, having pregame shows, having maybe pre-made videos in between runs that can help to engage people, that's how you're going to do that.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the maybe it's something to learn, to take away from that, is that you know, it at the end of the day, you know, call it what you will, call it that's to esports or whatever, but at the same time, I think you're creating a viewer experience, and part of that is looking for new ways to explore it rather than giving people the same thing every single year.
Was
Now, I
the
just
Super
wanna add
Mario?
one-
Go ahead.
I was just going to add one more thing about the production value thing. I do understand that, you know, there's money and resources and
Right.
people involved in all that, and that's maybe something that's been lacking. But I know part of the discussion on the forums anyway recently has been, you know, let's get more people involved. Let's, you know, get this thing going. So hopefully we can do that. And I do understand it's not just easy.
Right,
to
you
get
can't just flip a switch
crazy
and
production
suddenly
value,
this
yeah.
all happens.
I don't want to. Yeah, I don't want it to sound like we're just saying like, "Hey, this should look like ESPN next GDQ." You
Right.
know?
No,
I mean,
no
obviously
one's
that's not
claiming. No
realistic.
one's claiming that, you know. Okay, this is going to be the new, you know, international, and everyone's going to be gawking at the thousands of dollars of cameras we have, or the millions
Right.
of dollars of audio
Right.
equipment.
Soon we'll have a
But
camera
at the same
crew running
time, if
around.
3 people have an idea that, hey, if we can get, you know, give us a webcam and, you know, a table, and we can do something with that, you know, I think it's cool that they're
Yeah.
maybe starting to explore that and let people. I mean, at the same time, you know, you mentioned it's a charity event, but at the same time, it's kind of also a showcase of the community in general, and it's nice to see
Right.
that maybe we can showcase more of the community too.
Yeah.
Budget aside, we've got a community of 500 plus people that are going to AGDQ. You don't think we've had how many people on this show who have extra talents? And I'm not saying we're going to have people on a unicycle, you know, flipping, you know, bowling pins.
Well, they could
But I'm
have that,
saying, but I'm saying, like, you've got instances where you have like Stryker play the guitar like during his run. I know it's a donation incentive, but there are people who do have the talents to make this sort of thing happen. It's not as hard as I think a lot of us make it up to make some sort of pre-made video that can happen in between runs. that community members themselves can make. We as a community can make this a more entertaining show. We just have to, I don't know.
Okay. I'm looking through the list here, just trying to come up with other topics that we wanted to talk about. One of the things that you mentioned, I think this was Spike's topic, it might have been Sinister's, back heavy schedules. So do you want to talk a little bit about what you mean by that and what your thoughts are? Whose was that? Was that Spike's?
Oh, that was mine.
Okay.
That was Spike.
Want to explain what you mean by back heavy schedule and then bring up the question?
Well, it's once again just bringing up the whole idea of, we had kind of like you said, the donation pattern was at the beginning, bam, first 24 hours we set a first day record in donations. We had like over $100,000, and then all of a sudden for 4 days we only raised about another 100,000. I think it ended up being, and then at the very end we raised like $500,000 in the last 48, 50 something hours. And we kind of talked about this as a positive. This Rom Scout showed to do this last year as well, where he saved the Super Metroids, he saved the LTTPs and the Ocarina of Times. He saved the big hype races, like all the big stuff kind of at the end. And was this actually a bad thing? Is it sort of this idea that, because I think a lot of people will stop and look at a schedule when they see it and say, all right, I'm not going to watch the whole marathon. What are the 5 or 6 runs I'm most excited about? I'm going to show up for that. Well, it looks like it's all at the end of the marathon, as opposed to, is there a way going forward that we can maybe spread this stuff out more, that every night's got a really hype run that people are going to want to show up for? And I know you look at the schedule, they're all quote unquote hype runs, but there is that like top tier of runs that everybody really wants to watch. And I felt like all of that kind of happened near the end. And so, I mean, I will say I'm one who thought it was a cool idea at first, but as it looks like from donations, it was not a great idea. It took till the final 2 days of the marathon for us to, really make any headway on donations.
So I guess what you're trying to say is you think maybe like every night there's maybe like a, you take one race or you take one, whatever you want to call it, top tier run, and that kind of is the focus of the night. Or...
And you know what it actually is? The more that I actually think about it myself, what do we have in common with games like Super Metroid, the Mega Man X and 2 races, maybe some of like the Link to the Past stuff? Like, what's the difference between that and from, I don't know, the other nights where we had like, GoldenEye and Doom 64 and Halo, or the nights maybe we had like Donkey Kong Country, maybe some of the other games. I feel like the runs that were held till the end are the ones that get the audience at the arena or at the hotel the most excited. That's what we packed the rooms for. We saw a lot more of that packed room in the final 2 nights than we did for the rest of the marathon. And again, you get the room really pumped up, and I've used this word a million times, engaged in what's going on. How much more is that going to help the viewing audience at home?
Okay. Killa, let me ask you a question, because you seem to be excited about that one as you lean back further and further in your chair. Just from your own experience just at SGDQ, being in the marathon room, do you remember maybe like the first night that you were in the room? Like, what was the first run you were in for? And then like, how long was it before you were back in the room?
The first run I was legit in for was Donkey Kong Country 1 and 2.
Okay.
That was the first one I went into. I don't know. I had a somewhat of a weird, because I know I popped my head in, day 1, and I think there was, I can't recall the run. There was maybe 3 people in there, and I just went in there and just walked around and got a feel for everything. I just had a really weird feeling about it. Like, I just got a really weird vibe. I couldn't explain it, but like something just didn't like feel right in a way. But yeah, then I came in for the Donkey Kong Country, and that was great because that had a decent amount of people. And I don't think I came back from Donkey Kong until, I can't remember, was Bucky before Mega Man Classic Block, or was it the other way around?
That was
either way.
Was after, by a few days.
Okay. I know I sat in on the Mega Man. I think that was the next time I came in.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, I definitely was not as hell-bent on getting into the marathon room as much as possible as I was, say, at AGDQ.
Okay.
AGDQ, I was in the stream room a lot. This one, I think personally it was more focused on just hanging out with everyone.
Sure.
But yeah, I guess from a standpoint of being in the stream room, it wasn't as, I guess, exciting for me as it could have been. Um, I mean, like I said, it was great to see the runs I wanted to, and it was great to see my friends play. But yeah, in terms of me, I didn't make it a huge point to be in the stream room as much as possible.
I guess the thing to take away here is that I don't think we're saying the schedule itself had bad primetime games. Like, I feel like there's a distinction here. It's, like, I think Classic Mega Block, I think that's a good choice. Like, I think that was well represented.
Yeah, Mario Block was
wasn't one of them. But I think what Spike's point is that it seems like some of the big guns, or a lot of the big guns, go continuously at the very end, whereas they could maybe spread out more throughout. Is that kind of what I'm hearing?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm probably the only one that maybe would go the other way on it a little bit, just for the fact that I do think the schedule was balanced out in terms of, if we looked at the nights. Like, I think we actually went through and looked at each night and said, okay, what was going on this night, and there was maybe one night where I kind of said, I don't know about this one. But I think it's the kind of thing where I don't think you can really do it wrong, because as long as you're not putting those runs in like graveyard, there's not necessarily a bad time linked to the past or something.
And to be fair, something else to consider too is that, as much as we might want to have like prime time Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, it's really that weekend that's going to bring in the larger viewer counts on average.
Yeah. Weekend is going to get people, and and we're also just catering to East Coast time zone as well. I mean, just remember, there's so many people watching the marathon.
But I think there's maybe something there too, though, from Spike's point, just to kind of like bounce back. I'm kind of trying to play devil's advocate on this one, because I think it could go both ways. But the thing is that a run is only as hype as you build the hype for. Like, first of all, the runner, like, it's got to be a run that people are going to be blown away by. I think that's a fair statement. There's some games that, like, okay, I did the run, but not a lot of people know the game. It's unfamiliar, so it might not work for everything. But I also feel like it's something where, again, if you mention a run a couple of times leading up to the day, it's Monday night and or Monday afternoon, and you're trying to hype up a run for Monday night, that'll get people to come back to it. And maybe that's all that it takes, is just to remind people of a certain run or a certain block that they should be excited for. So yeah, interesting. I don't know, something to think about anyway.
I guess sorry, real quick, going off that, what do you guys feel about, I know you said it with like back heavy, how do you feel about the last game of the marathons being like exceeding the 4 or 5 hour mark, in terms of like that being the last game?
I think that's a good question, and I don't know whether you planned it or not, but I have a straw poll for that, so I'm
gonna
link that question. Very well done.
Sorry.
You're a good guest.
Yeah.
No. So I'm gonna ask people what they think of that. So what are you guys' thoughts on long games, but also Final Fantasy? Go ahead, Sinister One.
I see the merits of it. I personally, I have never watched the last game of any GDQ, because it's always been some long ass RPG, which I could probably care less about. And I think there's a lot of people that are in that same boat. But at the same time, there is, of course, that very, very dedicated RPG fan base who also happens to love to donate, and there's all kinds of incentives. So, I mean, I understand why they choose these games for the end of the marathon, and I think you're not going to make everybody happy choosing them. And they had switched it up that one time with Twilight Princess, which, I mean, at the same time, it's still a long game.
Yeah.
We're always dealing with this one long game, and I think that, I don't know that you can say that there's a correlation between having a super long game at the end of the marathon making a lot of money, or just, it could just be because it's the end of the marathon.
Yeah.
And people are just getting hype and donating because they know that this thing is coming to an end. There's no way to definitively say, like, it's because of Final Fantasy.
Sure.
Right.
I guess I'll jump in here and give my thoughts. First of all, I think RPGs are great for the marathon. I don't think it's a good thing if you take them away, because there are dedicated fan bases too. I'm a fan of Final Fantasy games. I've watched Final Fantasy marathon runs just to hear, some of the commentary about it, or to see, maybe there's a strategy I didn't know on a boss, something like that. And so I think there obviously is that audience for it. There's a passionate audience for RPGs. The problem that I have with it being the finisher game is that I feel like it's not the peak moment of the marathon. And you want to leave a lingering taste right? You want people to come back for more. And if it's the final part of the marathon, I think there are better examples out there of things that have left an impact on people. I mean, even just look at people leaving the room at the GDQ and their thoughts. If you look at AGDQ, what was the one everyone was talking about? It was Super Metroid. That was trending on Twitter afterwards. People were talking about it for weeks and months afterwards.
Yeah, the end of the marathon right there.
Yeah. But I mean, again, so that was an example where, you know, Chrono Trigger goes on into the early morning hours. And, you know, we do end up hitting the $1 million as a result of that. But is it Chrono Trigger that pushed that? Or, you know, if the schedule had shifted around, Super Metroid was the finisher, would it still have done that? Now, the thing to note, though, is that the RPGs tend to go into the early hours of the morning. So if the marathon is set to end really early in the morning, I don't think Super Metroid gets the same response. You know, like if it's at 3 in the morning, how many people are going to show up for the, you know, AGDQ 4-way race? So I think there's kind of a caveat, which is like, if you want it to end on like the hype game, quote unquote, where everyone's in the room, then you also have to end the marathon during prime time.
Right.
And that might, you know, take away runs. So that, I mean, it's kind of a give or take.
It does. Yeah. It doesn't just might, it takes away 7-8 hours worth of runs that would have been sprinkled throughout the rest of the marathon. This is an interesting topic for me because I've gone back and forth on it a little bit. Like, again, I brought this up a lot during the show. I like to see the marathon organizers taking chances and doing different things with the schedule. But the problem is, like, let me ask you guys this. Why not have, like, what does it mean to be the marathon closer? I've seen a lot of people in the topics bring it up as like, oh, it's a better representation of our community because it shows off maybe like skill instead of just like memorization and menus and stuff like that. But again, is that necessarily the best thing to have, you know, certain runs end at 7 in the morning just because you like it more, just because you're more personally hype about it? I don't know. I don't feel like a lot of people here really care about necessarily being in the room at the very end. I don't know. It almost, like, to me, I guess I sort of view, again, I would like to see something else given the opportunity to be the closer, but Final Fantasy being that closer and the people who are fans of it, the fan base for it, they've almost sort of taken a hit over the years to say, will be that run that has to go on from midnight to 8 in the morning.
Right. So I think it kind of boils down to, when does the marathon end? And, you know, is it worth ending it at that early in the morning if there's a game willing to step in and do that? Because the argument that I hear for Final Fantasy, the main one, that like the reason it is the finisher game is because it brings in donations up until the very end.
Sure.
But if you want to talk about bringing in donations to the very end, Super Metroid Kill Save the Animals is at the very end of the game. It goes up until the last, you know, minute and a half. And people donated more than 10% of the money at SGDQ towards Kill or Save. So I don't think that argument is the reason. I think it's more so just that idea of, okay, the marathon has to end at 5 in the morning. And you know, obviously SGDQ, I think that was not deliberate. Like, the idea wasn't to have it go that far into the morning. But, you know, I'm not sure on specifics of that. But my thought is, you know, Final Fantasy belongs in the marathon. I don't know that it's the end game, in my opinion. I certainly think it belongs in there, and people will donate for it regardless of what you do. But I would like to see, you know, that room ending on the X2 race and everybody leaving talking about the X2 race, or, you know, Super Metroid race happening, and we'll see you guys next year, because I think that really sets the tone.
Or what about this? How about, you know, Final Fantasy on like that Tuesday or Wednesday when we have that dip in the action? If it's such a big moneymaker, why don't we just stick it right at our weakest point?
Sure. So
that we can shore up all the, you know, the donations that we're losing during those times.
Yeah, and something else to note too is that Final Fantasy's the viewer count goes down for Final Fantasy runs. At least the last couple times we've seen it be a finisher game, the viewer count's gone down. I don't know what that does for donations. You know, if that, you know, we're still getting the same amount. It's hard to tell. I don't have the stats on that, but maybe somebody could look that up. But I would think you would want to kind of build your viewership up to the final run, and then
keep them.
Yeah. But anyway, Akilla, what do you think? You like Final Fantasy as a finisher?
You guys might hate me on this one. personally, I'm not. At least I haven't come across a game I found that I personally like RPGs being speedrun in general. It personally doesn't hold my interest enough. So I'd have to say no on Final Fantasy being a finisher. I feel like, as you guys are pointing out, I feel like you should build up to the end and just have it be this one huge crazy finish, like either it be a race or, a game that's very, I'm not trying to, technical and
Technical.
and like and just a bunch of crazy stuff happens and then it's over and done, and it was amazing. I feel like with me personally, I mean, again, this is me and my input on it. I just feel RPGs and turn-based type things, it's just too many instances where there's just long periods of time where it's, I don't want to say like lull or dead time, but it's just, grinding or something like that. I feel like you guys were saying the end should be the big flourish and then it's done. It's the finale, you know.
And I've seen some interesting arguments too for other games that SMRPG keeps coming up as one where, hey, this is still a role playing game. It's very intensive for the runner to execute it well as well, and it's something different. That's the other thing too. I feel like it's part of the reason Final Fantasy always ends the marathon is that it's tradition. So let's keep doing it.
Yeah, which I don't think that's a good argument for it.
Yeah. So anyway, it's kind of split here too. I'm just going to put the numbers up. So go ahead.
No, I guess I'll go out on saying I'd like to see them try something different. I would love to see something like an SMRPG, maybe an Ocarina of Time, 100% or something. Take the finale slot for once. It's just, it would be cool to see how does that change the marathon dynamic if you do have runs that people want to fill the room for at the end, as opposed to it is kind of the time where, and I've been the closer of a marathon 2 or 3 times now in some way or another, and the room does kind of, everyone leaves.
Right.
So how does that
that's
change?
kind of the thing for me too is, there's maybe 10 people in the room for Final Fantasy.
Yeah.
Right.
And I don't know like if that's a bad thing necessarily from a perspective of me. I would much rather see hundreds of people in there at the end, but does that affect the viewer at all? I don't know.
Well, and you got to think too, the whole thing about time. I mean, it's the last day. I mean, everyone there just wants to kind of, either have their last hurrah with everyone there that they're not going to see for a while, or, I mean, that's something you got to put into a factor too. I mean, excuse me, a majority of the people are probably going to want to have their last night, be with people that are there. But yeah, it's like, I guess I'll take back a little what I said. I think SMRPG would be an awesome game because, I mean, it is a very interesting RPG to watch. So I'm kind of taking back
Sure.
what I just
and
said.
it's still a good lane.
Yeah. And I don't think anybody's trying to say like, oh, Final Fantasy, terrible game. Like,
no,
don't put it in the marathon.
And,
I think
it's
just more like the desire to kind of end on a high note when everyone's in the room together. It's all kind of like a group thing.
Mm-hmm.
And we haven't really seen that response where Final Fantasy fills the seats.
Yeah. I think I think a change needs to happen.
To be fair, yeah, what you're saying, Killa, too, is because it is the final game, it gives everybody at the event a chance to kind of hang out and not worry about what's going on in the main marathon.
Right.
So,
yeah.
Interesting topic nonetheless. This one comes up. It seems to come up every GDQ. There's opinions both ways. Final question for everybody involved, and I'll throw this to you guys in our group as well. Just on a scale of 1 to 5, or maybe even not on a scale, but just give me kind of your review of the event. What do you think about this SGDQ? Did you have a good time? Are you ready to go back again? AGDQ when that rolls around, are you hyped for it again? What did it do for you personally? Let's start with Rib Killa.
Okay.
I
legit.
By the way.
Yeah, we're all in the Killosphere.
That's right.
I legit cried when I got on the plane to leave.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't actually cry, but
you should have left her.
I cried.
I don't know if I can trust you anymore.
A lot.
Yeah.
No. I had literally I just want to say, regardless if the whole E-fame or whatever happened, like that, it literally was probably one of the best weeks I've had in a long time. Like in terms of hanging out with everyone, meeting everybody, just having a good time, gaming and everything. I had a blast, and I'm looking forward to every GDQ to come. I mean, I personally don't know if any of them will top my SGDQ experience just because it was really amazing. But for me personally, not looking at all of like the technical issues or whatever. Me
Get it?
personally,
Technical issues? I can't believe he did that.
I'm not
Just
trying to
kidding.
be all.
I'm just kidding.
I know.
I'm just kidding.
I'm being sentimental, man. Come on.
I
No.
interrupted your moment. I'm sorry.
No, it's cool. Yeah, no, I had so much fun. Like I was. It's a few days when I was back sitting in my apartment, I'm just like, wow, this sucks. Like I really want to be back, but I'm definitely. I'm a firm. I definitely want to make as many GDQs as possible
Sure.
from here on out. So I definitely I had a good time. I have no negative reviews whatsoever.
Nice. Sinister One, what did you think of the event?
Well, I was in kind of a weird position because of my AGDQ 2014. That was like for me the perfect marathon. Like literally nothing went wrong. Everything went absolutely amazing, and I knew that like there's no way this event's going to live up to that. So I kind of just wanted to make sure, just focus on having fun, hanging out with people and all that kind of stuff, which I think I did. And I think for me, it was much more enjoyable, just the interaction and stuff, and maybe not so much my runs and the
Sure.
games and even watching runs and stuff like that. So that definitely was mission accomplished, getting to spend time with everybody. So that's one of the biggest parts of the GDQs. And I was fortunate enough to win my race, which was also a big
Nice. Another
big
another
deal.
one for the W column. There you go.
That was another one in the W column. I got I got the most wins. So
There you go.
yeah. So but overall, yeah, it was a good experience as always.
Yeah,
definitely.
winning feels great. Winning a race feels amazing.
Go Killa. Spike, what did you think of the event overall?
I don't want to come off like I didn't love the event. I always love going to them. There's so many people there that have been amazing to meet over the years. A lot of cool new people. Shout outs to people like a lot of the Mega Man community, Clear Tonic, Checkers. It was great meeting at Def Games. You're 15 and you're more mature than I am.
It's true.
That's a completely true story.
That's not difficult.
I
now.
will say that was a big surprise too, because I got the impression. Sometimes this happens when you're in like chat too, where you get the impression of somebody just based on how they type. I don't know, like maybe it's just I read too much in the chat,
sure.
but I kind of got this impression that like ADF Games was going to be this off the walls, like super hyper, woo,
right,
kind of guy, and he was so calm and reserved and just humble about the
Well,
fact
and
that he
that's
was
the thing,
in the event. It was awesome.
Behind a screen and being like in person. I mean, I felt that way too. Like one of my main concerns going to not only AGDQ but SGDQ as well is like people only knew me for the antics that I've done over the years and stuff, and I was worried that people and their preconceived notions of me were going to take it the wrong way. But I mean, and that's just why it's such a huge difference from being right here right now in terms of being face to face with people. I mean, you just see more sides of someone that you never saw before, and it's a nice thing to be able to do that, to see more of like people you've talked to for years online, you see them in person and you see this whole other side of them that just makes you want to be friends with them even more, kind of thing.
Yeah, I guess go ahead, keep going, Spike.
The one thing I guess I'm just going to end off as, and I just want to make clear, I love the event, I love the people there, there are a lot of great runs. The one thing I'll say about this event, and I might piss some people off here, but the one thing about this event, I feel like it did not make as many strides as a lot of other GDQs that I've seen in the past. I know it's hard to top yourself after a while, but I thought there were a lot of other things that they could have done that I hope to see at future marathons that could have been implemented in this one. Great. Again, you can't argue with 717,000, but
yeah,
I think there's almost more they could have done, and I feel like I don't want to use the word lazy because a lot of people have put in many hours of work, but I feel like there's just more we could have done.
Okay. I guess for me, I kind of agree with that, but maybe I'm thinking a little bit differently. I guess the thought to me is Overall, I had a blast. I go to these events more for the people than I do for what's going on in the marathon room, and a lot of people, I think that's true too. You know, your marathon run is important to you, and you want to do well in your marathon run. But regardless of how it goes, you're still going to have that group of people waiting for you in that other room that people don't get to see at home. Which is, I mean, I kind of think that sucks. Like, if I was the home viewer, I'd like to see what's going on in that practice room, just because I feel like people talk about that more than they talk about what happens in the marathon room. It's really the stories that go on behind the scenes that make these events. And go ahead, Killa.
Oh, so I was just say I have to agree more often than not that I feel like behind the scenes way more stuff happened than on stream this time around. Sure. Like it was great.
Yeah, I think
it was a good time.
It's about just getting to hang out with people that you otherwise don't get to see in real life and interact with, and to me, that's always going to be like the highlight. And I guess my concern going forward with the GDQs is similar to what Spikes is. It's just this idea that we're going to reach a point where it becomes formulaic. This works, we raise money, so we're going to keep doing it this way. And I hope that maybe what we started to see at SGDQ is an opportunity to take some chances. You know, whether it was the interviews or the music that was playing, or the killer race that wasn't prepared, or you know, other things like that just kind of keep it fresh and new and give you reasons to come back. I think that's kind of what it boils down to. And I hope what happens is that if people want to get involved, they do, and they have opportunities to do it. That's kind of my concern. I just want anybody who wants to help out and try to contribute to these events to have the opportunity and the ability to do that, because at the end of the day, that's what makes the event, is the people who are involved. So that's what my thoughts are.
We watch streams year round. We all do, right? We're in that day and age where any time of the day I can bring up the front page of SRL or just go to Twitch and I can find all the speedrunning streams I want to watch. What's going to be different about AGDQ and SGDQ going forward that I only get to watch this twice a year? What is going to keep me coming back to the GDQs in that way, more than just I want to see my friends? What about the show itself?
Sure. Okay. I think that's the right tone here. And we're looking at the results of this poll here, by the way, too. It looks like overwhelmingly you guys gave it a 4 out of 5. 4 or 3 out of 5 was pretty popular. A few people going for excellent. Just a small sliver of you guys voting for 2. But I think the important takeaway here is nobody voted not fun. So there we go. We're having fun at least.
Nobody's not having fun.
Had fun.
That's good.
Yeah, if you didn't have fun, you're doing it wrong.
Right. There's not even that one guy in the chat who just wants to be that guy and vote not fun. There you go. That's the takeaway. So I think overall, SGDQ was a lot of fun this year. I had a lot of fun hanging out with you guys and just getting to know you a little better. Hopefully, we'll see you guys all at AGDQ.
Oh yeah.
And
I
think for those of us that are maybe wondering about, you know, what is the future of SGDQ, hopefully ESA maybe shows us something that we didn't expect, and maybe that gets some minds, you know, working together on something new. It's kind of like a rivalry, but not really. You know, it's everybody wins when somebody comes up with something new. So I'm excited to see what ESA offers us in just a few weeks. But anybody have any closing thoughts? I want to give a speech, since that's kind of our thing. That's what we do.
We got to get a Killa speech.
Killa speech.
Oh God, a Killa speech.
All right, hold on. Let me load up the thing. Okay, there it is. God. It's time for the speech.
Oh my God, really?
Now,
right.
I'll give you an option, Killa. I'll give you an option. How about this? That's not really fair to put you on the spot. I will let you give a speech, or you can do a WAP for us.
Man, how about I do a little bit of both?
A little bit of both.
Right.
Wow.
I could do a little bit
Combo
of both.
finish. I like it.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I've said before, I had a blast. I don't know. I took a lot of positive things away from this. Like, it's just to see like the community and stuff, and how really laid back it's starting to be. Like, I'll keep bringing up the whole SMW race. Like, at first I was really nervous. Like, I said no. Like, I didn't want to do it because I didn't want to. I kept telling myself, and like I always had, like you said, if you're not the best, then why are you here, kind of thing. And that's how I felt at first. Like, there are way people like, why don't you just have Walkenut and Sweetie T do it, because they know the game way better, they could do a better job. Like, I died on 1-1, like the first level of that race. Like,
we know.
But yeah, I know.
It was
everyone knew. Yeah, but yeah, like I like to see how the whole like it's starting. I'd like to say from it, it's starting to transition to more of an entertainment thing rather than just we're here just for the runs. Like hopefully, like you guys are saying, it'll expand into more. And I felt like the race, like the SMW, it felt more casual. It felt more laid back. It felt more open for people to just be themselves. Like I never thought I could just sit there and just kind of do what I do and be me and goof off and do whatever. It gave me a chance to kind of show like how I am. Like
Sure.
and because like that honestly like that WAP was no big deal for me because that's stuff I do all the time with my friends here. Like it just felt great to be myself, I guess, and not have to worry about am I being, too I don't know, not professional, I guess,
Sure.
or whatever. It was nice to, just to be able to hang out and have fun, and it was just a great time. Thank you guys for letting me be on the show. By the way, it was
no problem.
very, very
Thank
surprised when I got that contact, and it was really awesome.
And just a reminder to everybody watching, by the way, these are the you see the little purple icon there, right next to that. That's our Twitch. So you should follow Ribbed Killa down there. Ribbed Killa, it's pretty easy. It's written right there for you. Give him a follow. So yeah, thanks again for being on the show. Can you give us the sign off WAP? Can we?
Yes.
Or do you not?
Can we cue the song? I mean, is it too much to cue the song this time around?
I mean, I can try.
Yeah, try to look it up, and then I got a question. I got a question for you, Ribbed Killa.
What's up?
While Golden's getting that queued up, I need to know on a scale of 1 to 10, how technical of a dance is the WAP?
On a scale of 1 to 10, I'd say my version is probably a 9.5 out of 10.
Wow,
on the
a 9.5.
9.5.
Proceeds go to.
I gotta say 9.5.
Very nice.
The dance itself isn't that hard. It's just the filler time in between. You gotta
Oh, you fill it.
Oh, I filled it.
I don't know if you're gonna get to see it because you're not gonna hear it because it's coming through my speakers. But if you want to just get up, I'm playing it.
All right, I'm just gonna get up and do it.
imagine.
I'm just gonna get up. I'll just.
It is
say
playing.
out
I
loud.
promise you. Let's see it. It's going. It's going. Show us the WAP. Oh, look at that. Just remember, guys, your run is not over until you hit the final split. We'll see you guys next week. Have a good one.